After 50 years, the wait is over, and the Western audience has finally been able to get their hands on Persona 5. If you aren't familiar with the Persona series, it's essentially a classic JRPG mixed with elements from visual novels. You spend half of your time managing how you handle your day-to-day life, while the other half is spent in dungeons, fighting enemies, and taking down bosses. From the outside looking in, nothing about this mixture seems that appealing. However, the Persona games have always had that little dash of magic thrown into them that turned them into extremely addictive and enthralling games. Persona 3 and 4 are both hailed as some of the best JRPGs of all time, and for very good reason. The games managed to take the storytelling and character development you'd expect from a long-running TV show, and it mixed it together with a simple yet very engaging combat system. Persona 5's predecessors are beloved by many, so expectations were high for this newest entry. Being a huge fan of the fourth game myself, I was also expecting a lot from this game. I went in hoping for the best, and in the end, I left with my expectations not only being met, but being blown out of the water. Persona 5 is a game that excels in every aspect. Even at its lowest points, it's still miles ahead of most other games. Every ounce of this game was top-notch, and it was an absolute pleasure of an experience. The biggest positive of this game is easily its presentation. The Persona series is well known for having an eclectic style with each game, but Persona 5 ratchets this up to 11. The way every single throwaway menu had some sort of unique hint of style to it was absolutely incredible. Not only did it look immaculate, but it freshened up otherwise stale genre tropes in a way that was quite remarkable. The way this game oozed style helped liven up the entire experience, as it transformed dull, uninteresting moments such as reading dialogue or going through stat menus into lively moments coupled with absurd amounts of beauty and polish. Persona 5 isn't just a visual splendor, but also a fantastic video game as well. This time around, P Studio took notes from previous entries and improved upon almost every single negative aspect that those games had. Dungeons are more than just hallways. Unused party members gain EXP so you can use all of your party members throughout the entire game. You can choose which spells you want when you fuse a new persona. There's less downtime between the dungeons, and what downtime there is can be filled with side quests, and that's just what I could remember off the top of my head. All of these changes come together with the new gameplay additions and make Persona 5 the most enjoyable game in this series. All of this aside though, how is the writing? Persona games are beloved for their ability to work in engaging stories with lovable and dynamic characters, so how does Persona 5 fare? Well, unsurprisingly, Persona 5 knocks it out of the park in this regard as well. All of the characters in Persona 5 are given that magic P Studio touch and come across as lovable, interesting people. Sure, there are some characters who may not be as interesting as the others, but even so, they all offer their own style to the group, and the game is better off with them in it. As for the story, this is where the game falters a bit, as this is easily the least interesting story of the three popular Persona games. The whole stealing hearts angle never really piqued my interest as much as the Scooby-Doo mystery in 4 did, or the literal apocalyptic nightmare that 3 offered. Even still, it provided enough of a hook to keep me interested throughout my playtime, but never quite as interested as I was during 3 or 4. There were also some pacing issues. The middle of this game is a bit of a slog, and could have been alleviated by removing a number of conversations where characters do nothing but repeat themselves. However, those two issues aside, the writing in this game is still a very positive aspect of this game. What makes Persona 5 really special though, is the fact that it's very much its own thing. After Persona 4, Atlus realized that they had a massively successful franchise on their hands. However, at the time it was hard to tell if it was Persona 4 that was so beloved or the Persona series. Atlus could have easily decided to make Persona 5 a soft Persona 4 sequel and fill it to the brim with as many references and throwbacks as they could come up with. That simply wasn't the case though. Atlus made the excellent decision to almost completely ignore the influence of Persona 4. This allowed Persona 5 to feel like a brand new journey with new faces and new vistas. At most, we get a few throwaway lines of dialogue that hint at the previous games, but apart from that, Persona 5 is entirely its own thing, and as a result, the game feels like a breath of fresh air. Persona 5 also offers more player choice than ever before. not only by adding in 2 new elements to be used in combat, but also by allowing the player to go out at night and continue the social aspect of the game. This concept had been implemented in a more simplistic state in the previous games, but in Persona 5 it goes all out. When you're allowed to go out at night, you have the entire world at your limit. Not only that, but there are specific actions you can only do at night. This new nighttime activity system allowed for the social aspect of the game to be expanded in a way that didn't overwhelm the player. Now, every single day outside of a dungeon is a carefully balanced decision where you weigh your options and ultimately choose what you think would be best for you. However, there was one issue that I found with this new system. Now, this issue wasn't necessarily with the system, but rather with a certain character's inability to allow you to interact with it. I'm talking about, of course, Morgana. For some reason, P Studio decided to heavily railroad the player during story-heavy sequences by disallowing them to go out at night. This wouldn't really be an issue if there were some sort of logical justification for it, but most of the time you'll spend the day just chatting with your team, then heading home. On that same night, as you try to leave and get some stuff done, Morgana will prevent you from doing so, claiming that you should get some sleep. This happens more times than I could count, and was extremely frustrating every single time. That being said though, the nighttime activity system was still an excellent addition to this game, even despite Morgana's best efforts to keep you from interacting with it. When it was all said and done, I was surprised with how well this game came together. Persona 5 is a game that always keeps its head held high. Even through its rougher moments, this game is still one of the most enjoyable experiences I have had in quite a while. The style, the gameplay, the writing, it was all just on another level. Persona 5 really is something special. Overall, Persona 5 is a 5 out of 5. This game is quite simply immaculate in almost every single regard. Minor flaws are all that will affect you, but other than that, you are in for an absolute treat when playing through this game.
It's time. Persona! Go down!
Come on, Joker!